Hello, we are Elsa and Dan Chelsea, and we own Verde Olivo Floral. We are located in the Inland Empire of the LA area. We started our business here in California in 2018, and when we started out, we were new in the area and zero contacts. I was so lucky because I came across Christina and started to learn how to run our business. Today we are going to discuss transportation and preparation. With our first wedding, I realized how difficult it was to transport flowers in order to have them arrive at the event in perfect shape. I had a couple of bad experiences and I lost a bride because of that. I made a sample for her, and when I was on the way to deliver it, the arrangement fell over several times in the car. When I get there, the flowers are so damaged and the bride doesn't hire me. Also, I never forget the day when I went to pick up the flowers from my vendor, and on the way home, a bucket with water fell over on me while I was driving on the freeway. Oh my gosh. So I talked to my husband and I asked for help, and he did a good job. So here is Dan, and he's going to explain all the tricks and tips to make your transportation problem easier. Go ahead.
Hi there, my name is Dan, as you probably already know, and I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks that we have learned over the years to make our transportation of flowers easier. We started out with our cars, we rented vans, I've borrowed vans, and we now have our own van, which we actually love. Okay. All right, what I would like to do, well, first of all, let me, you'll have to apologize for my voice. I'm not sure what happened to it, but hopefully it'll hold out here for the next 30 minutes or so. Anyway, what I would like to do is take you on a journey with Elsa and me when we first started our business, what we came across, and what we ended up doing to get where we are today. First of all, when we started our business, we really didn't have anything aside from our personal cars to use. So these are the cars that we used for a while, and we were very, well, let's just put it this way. I had to create sometimes a very imaginative way to pack the florals into the cars. There is only so much space, and sometimes we just took one car, sometimes we took two cars, but we started out with these two vehicles. And I'm sure that you recognize sometimes some of these photos. It's just some of the early photos we had when the cars were packed full of flowers and there wasn't really much room for anything else. Sometimes we'd have flowers in one car and all our hard goods in another car. Sometimes the wedding was small enough that we were able to fit everything into one vehicle, but they were always packed full. And there were times when I just couldn't believe how much you could actually fit in these cars when you organized things properly. Anyways, so these are just a few photos of that, and I just wanted to show you where we were when we first started. So what did we do right off the bat? Well, this shows you an example of a system that we used. I'll get to this a little bit later, but I wanted to show you this right off the bat. We got this right away when we started transporting flowers, and it has helped out a lot. The name of it is the Seminole Flower System, and it allows you to organize and maximize the space that you have available while preventing any accidents with vases falling over, buckets falling over, all that type of stuff that can potentially lead to some minor emergencies along the way. In addition to the cars, once in a while we had to borrow my sister's minivan. because it was just a little bit too much. And this is an example of the system in the minivan. This was going to be transporting 60 tropical centerpieces. They were based, we had used live pineapple for the vases, and my wife created a centerpiece on top of the pineapple, and we had to transport 6 of these. This was for a graduation for a local high school here. And as you can see, the system, it was neatly organized. I had all the things in place so that when the centerpieces were ready to go, I could just load them into the car and position them in such that the flowers would sort of overlap each other, and we could fit a lot into this car. Our cars were actually too small, so that's why we needed the minivan for this particular case here. So there's a quick photo of the florals when they're all in there, and you can see the bird of paradise is pointing every which direction. However, there is no empty space, and we can thank the Seminole system for that. Of course, sometimes a minivan is just not big enough, and you have to go with a rental. So we did a rental van as well. We actually rented a couple of times, and we had a wedding that was too big for the cars, and obviously the minivan wasn't going to work, so we borrowed the rental van. Oh my gosh, was that a real wonderful thing to have. So much space compared to what we were used to. And here's some photos of what it looked like inside the van. The flowers were there, buckets of flowers. We had vases, and I was able to put one of my little wire racks in the van. I actually tied it into place so it wouldn't move, and we put a lot of hard goods and everything on that metal rack, and we're able to transport everything with no problem in a van. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we need a van. But it just was not in our budget at the time, and I thought, well, we can always just rent one. So that's what we ended up doing on a couple of occasions. Just a few more photos of inside the van. You can see the flowers are neatly arranged in there, packed tightly so not to waste space, but also not to crowd them and damage them. There is a lot of wasted space above the flowers in the van, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So as you can see with this system here, these are photos of the bridal bouquet and the bridesmaids bouquets, how we transport those in glass vases in the system, and they always arrive in really perfect condition, and very, very, very nice. So this is our current vehicle. This is what we have now. We were able to purchase this vehicle. When I was looking to replace the cars and come up with something more, I was thinking of, do I continue to rent vans? Do we purchase our own trailer, add some air conditioning into that? And I was looking at a number of different options. Vans, when I was thinking at the time I would have really liked a van, it just didn't seem quite in our price range. This vehicle became available to us. It was used by a local florist here, and we ended up purchasing it, and it's worked out very well. Some of the things I really like about it, first of all, the thing that's most noticeable is it's high. Wow, you really don't know how much that makes a difference when you can actually stand up in the vehicle and have all this space. Since this vehicle was already used by a florist, it was a cargo van, it had rubber matting in it, it was pretty much set up, and we just adapted it for our use here. And one of the other things that I really like about this van, it drives really nice on the freeway. It doesn't feel like a big lumbering van, even though you would think it would be very cumbersome. It looks large and awkward. It really actually drives quite nice on the freeway. Okay, let me get into what we actually use. This is the system that we have. It consists of a number of rectangular black squares with holes in them. They're each, I think, 6 by 8 inches long, and you can snap them together in any configuration you want. In addition to that, the system basically comes with a variety of this PVC pipe. Now, it's a special type of pipe. It's a smaller, thicker pipe, actually called CPVC. And as you can see, it goes nicely into the little holes, and you can support buckets with that. They don't fall over. And of course, larger buckets or smaller buckets, and then the larger buckets as well. We transport those with this system. Okay, in addition to the system, I have added to our van shelves in here. Now these are removable, so I just they just made these 2x4s, put some plywood on top of it, and that allowed me to use the extra space that is in this high part of this van. So it adds a lot more room for transporting florals. And here we can see the inside of the van with a shelf in place. And like I said, we can remove the shelf if I need to. It's very simple to do that. And we can put the system on the floor and transport all our stuff that direction. So just a little sample of what we did this way here. So in this particular configuration, I needed the top part of the van to be used to transport some flat boxes, so I knew that ahead of time, so that's why I put that shelf back into place in the van. And also I knew I was going to be transporting several different buckets and plastic containers and a ladder, all that type of stuff that goes along to the event. So you can see here on the top part, it easily handles flat boxes of florals or greenery or whatever you have. I also put a little bit of the Seminole system on the top shelf there and put some small pegs in place in case I needed to stop quickly. I did not want those florals sliding forward and damaging who knows what. Anyways, so that's what the reason for all those little pegs were. And in addition to that, you can see the buckets of florals neatly arranged there. Have everything else strapped in, and some plastic buckets, all the other stuff that goes along with it, ladder, that type of thing. So not much of a problem for this van because it has a lot of space, like I said. So when we arrived there at the private residence, this was a small wedding at a private residence, so it was really quite easy. So when we arrived, you can see that everything arrived in exactly the way we packed it. There was no shifting, everything's fine, nothing fell over. So that is typically what we discover with our packing. Everything arrives exactly the same way we packed it. All right, now you can, here you can see the team unloading the flowers. Actually, the team consists of a good florist friend of ours, Rainey. Some of you probably know her, but she allowed us to transport the flowers for this wedding that she had in exchange for us videotaping it. So you can see Rainey's there with her husband and Elsa unloading the van. Very easy to do, and putting it into, Rainey had this wonderful cart, this wagon, foldable wagon, and we had seen those, but we had not thought of using that for transporting flowers. What a wonderful idea. So now we are the proud owners of a wheeled foldable wagon, which is really nice. You can see how easy it is to unload the arrangements, buckets from the van and put them into the wagon or a cart. If you have a cart, that's what you use. We have a cart which we also have used too, put them into the cart. So it's very easy to unload from a van and put it into the cart. I have a little step stool which I use to step in and out of the van. since it's a little bit high, and as I'm getting older, I don't want to take any chances that I'm going to fall. So I'll show you that a little bit later, but it's just a small little camping stool, and it just allows me to step into the van a little bit easier. So what I wanted to show you next was just another very small delivery. This one was for a style shoot that Elsa did recently. And for this particular one here, and what I do for all of our events is when we go ahead and are preparing for the event, Elsa's making the arrangements and I'm preparing to transport them. I know how many arrangements Elsa's going to be making, which include centerpieces, bouquets, boutonnieres. I also know how many vases we will need to take. I have an idea how many plastic trays or buckets or containers that we will need to take, and I plan accordingly. So in this photo here, I wanted to show you how I pre-plan my space. Now, these arrangements for this particular style shoot were quite wide and quite deep, so I needed to allow space between them. So what I did in this particular case here was take the plastic dish, the Lumi dish that Elsa uses, and I pre-placed the little tiny CPVC pegs into the system. And that way when we're ready to load the arrangements, I know exactly where they're going to go. And if I've measured correctly, everything should fit just fine. So this photo here is just showing pre-planning on how I would position the arrangements in the van. I do that pre-planning with any arrangement that we might need. In this particular case, we just needed one, so this was really easy. But I took the little plastic tray that the arrangement was going to be in and placed it in the system and positioned the pegs such so that when we were ready to transport, I could just take the arrangement and just put it neatly onto the shelf here. To transport our bouquets, we use glass vases, and the glass vases fit nicely into the system we have. We also we put the glass vases into a plastic tub. We can fit, depending how big the bouquets are, we can fit 6 to 8 of these in one of these plastic tubs, and then when Elsa gets to the event, she can just take the whole plastic tub of bouquets up to the bridal party and deliver them that way. We like the glass vases. They're fairly solid. Obviously, you can put water in them so that the flowers will arrive fresh to the wedding. Elsa also uses a hydration chamber to keep crowns fresh. In this particular case here, this is a photo of the hydration chamber we have. Basically, it's a plastic tub with a wet paper towel or wet cloth in it. Now here you can see once the arrangement is put into place, you can see the little plastic CPVC pegs holding it in place there, and it's not going to move, it's not going to go anywhere. Here is a photo of the flowers all loaded for this small style shoot. So you can see I put the 4 arrangements into the spots that I had pre-planned. There was enough room for me to utilize the space between the 4 arrangements in the center for another bucket, so I did that. And then I put the other buckets along the side of the arrangements so that I could utilize that space for the buckets that we took. So, and on the top shelf there, I put the single arrangement. You can see it has some pretty long greenery, so that was able to hang over there and not get damaged, and it worked out actually quite well. You can see the rest of the stuff is just sitting on the floor. The plastic bucket, in this case, just has the 1 bouquet, and we have 1 boutonniere, and I put my, Elsa has the hydration chamber in there as well, and I usually put a couple of pegs beside the hydration chamber just so it doesn't slide back and forth and damage the flowers that are also in that tray. Then she needed a little bit of a step ladder, so just strapped that into place against the shelf. That shelf, by the way, is fastened to the side of the van, so it's not going to be moving and fall over. And here's just one last photo of, second last photo of the space that we used in the van. This one is taken from above, so you can see how much of the space is utilized for the florals. There's a little bit of extra space in there, but not too much. And also then the positioning of the buckets or the plastic trays, Elsa's tools and supplies that she takes along, and that leaves enough room to put a cart in the van as well. So I had mentioned earlier that I was going to show you the little step stool that I have for the van, and this is a photo of that. It's just like I said, a little foldable camping stool, but it's enough to make the difference of really easy to get in and out of the van, or you have to be really careful. Fortunately, there's handles on the side of the van to hold, so I don't end up falling. Now, one other thing I wanted to show you was transporting large arrangements. Again, this is nice to have the van, the tall van, and you can fit these wide metal shelves. Those shelves happen to be 2 feet wide by 5 feet long. Of course, it's important to strap these shelves into place or fasten them somehow to the side of the van. In this particular case, I'm using tie-down straps, which are available from Home Depot or Lowe's or anywhere. And I tied them at the bottom, and then I also tied one at the top part. One thing about the straps, I put them in line with the shelf, just so that we wouldn't have to lift up the arrangements above the straps or run into any problems that way. And it works out quite well. Once you get the straps tied in and tight, there's ample room for other things inside the vehicle. So you can see in this photo here that there is plenty of room for other stuff, boxes or other arrangements or vases or anything else that you might have to carry. You can see in this photo how the wide shelf positioned in the van this way here accommodates some very large arrangements. These are luxury arrangements that Elsa made, and I just wanted to show you how to transport these as well. Because these arrangements are quite heavy and large, there's not as much of a chance of them tipping over or moving around. They also sit on a small little wooden platform to keep them up elevated just a little bit to protect the flowers and the greenery. These ultimately are going to be going onto a high glass vase that I'll show you here in a minute on how to transport that as well. Here you can see how the system also accommodates very tall vases. Now I had to customize some PVC pipe, some CPVC pipe for this here, so I'll show you how to do that next. But I wanted to also show you that how we could use the system to transport some very tall vases. These ones probably would be best if you kept them in the original box, that way you could stack them. But if for some reason the box got missing, got destroyed, or is no longer good enough, it is certainly an option to transport these things safely with the system that we have. Over time, I've had to modify some of the pipe that we had, cut additional pieces So here's just a sample of some of the pipe that I have. Little tiny short pegs for those plastic, short little plastic Lumi plates, dishes that you saw earlier. Then some middle-sized ones for the paper mache containers that go inside vases, and some taller ones for some little bit taller vases, and just a different assortment of different lengths of pipe depending on what we have to transport. The Seminole system that we got ships with the pre-cut lengths of CPVC pipe. For a lot of our applications, that worked out just fine. Now there's been many instances where I've had to cut additional pipe. You can buy this pipe at, like I said, Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that, and then just use a PVC pipe cutter to cut the pipe to whatever length you wish. It's very easy to do, as you can see here in this short little video clip. I'd like to take you through a thought process of what I think of when we're getting ready for an event. When we start to plan to transport our florals for an event, a couple of mental things I think of initially is how much space do I have available to me with my existing vehicles? Am I going to need a bigger vehicle? That was actually a question I had in our process for each of our weddings. Do I need to rent a van? Was the actual question I had. And also, with the space that I do have, how can I organize the florals and the vases, any of the tools or supplies, and anything that I need to take so that I can maximize the space properly and all the florals are going to arrive free of damage. Another thing I think about is how long is it going to take to load the vehicle, and allow enough time for that, in addition to the time to drive to the location. Also, is the day, something to think about is the temperature. In cooler climates, maybe not much of a problem, but in the summertime here in Southern California, it can get pretty warm, the sun can get pretty intense, so you need to make sure that you have a vehicle that is going to at least provide ample cooling to transport the flowers to the event. Another thing to think about, we've had this problem too, is the sun shining through the windows in our cars. And we didn't realize that, and my wife got home from the vendor, and the flowers that she brought home in buckets were basically damaged by the sun. So now if there is a bright sunshine, we take a light paper or a light cloth covering. Actually, we've even used those little doggy pads that are on the floor, wet them with water and place them on top of the florals. That way it keeps them moist and cool and protected from the sun. So that was another little trick that we had, and that worked out quite well. I also think of anything else I'm going to need for the event. Ladder, for example. We went to one installation one time, did not have a ladder, and we saw this big arch and we thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to get up there? Asked the venue if we could borrow their ladder. That was a big no-no. They were not going to let us do it. Fortunately, it was a winery, so we were able to use a couple of wine barrels, and they had this wood table which had not been set up yet, so we put the table on top of the wine barrels and we were able to get by without a ladder. But boy, that's one thing we will not forget, is a ladder, or two ladders in case you need one of those. In the downloadable workbook that you will find with our video, we've included a checklist of a lot of things that we thought of that we need to take to the event. What we have done is Elsa has her toolbox with the things that she needs to fix flowers, cut chicken wire, anything to do with really making the arrangement. I also have my toolbox, which includes all sorts of things that I think that I need. In addition to regular tools that I take along, screwdrivers, hammers, that type of thing, I have duct tape, knives, pipe cleaners, zip ties, trash bags, clear packing tape, lighters for candles, for example, a lint remover. I never know when you're going to need one of those, and that type of thing. All of that list is available in the downloadable workbook, like I said. So there you have it. Hopefully you've learned a few new things and picked up a little bit of information on transporting flowers and event preparation. Every time we learn something new, we see if it's going to fit into our business and we incorporate it if we need to. So this will be an ever-changing process, I'm sure, but what we have settled in for now seems to work really well for us. I want to thank Christina for the opportunity for Elsa and I to participate in this year's summit. This has been a real blessing for us. Elsa first discovered Christina on her very first summit in, what year was that? 2018? 18? It was in 2018, in the spring of 2018 was the first one that Christina had, and you were there.
Yes.
And you've attended every single one since then.
Oh my gosh, I won the lottery.
And learned a lot on the way.
A lot.
So,
yeah. Thank you, Christina.
Anyway, wanted to thank Christina for that, and hopefully in some small way this will help some of you who are new to the business find new ways to transport your flowers. And by the way, if you stick around a little bit at the end of the video, there's a couple of bloopers. Those are always fun.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We are located in the again.
Okay.
I don't want to say
Well, don't then. Okay. So you're going to be looking down at your phone during the video?
no.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Phone over there, face down.
Yeah.
Okay. No social media while we're recording a video for Christina.
Okay, teacher.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.